Fate can be an asshole. Atsumu let the hot water in the shower splash down on him and sank deep into thoughts of Sakusa and his past. He had yet to process all of this. Life goes on no matter what. Time doesn't stand still. There is no going back either, only a what if remains. What if the bomb had hit Sakusa and not his mother? What if he didn't run to his father at that time? Would there have been any chance at all for his father back then? What if he had never fallen in love with Yuki? Atsumu's eyes widened. His entire body was trembling. Sakusa's desperate words stuck in his head. He repeated them over and over again. How are you supposed to feel when you are betrayed like that and still can't get over this person? Atsumu sighed. He closed his eyes and put his face against the stream of water. A queasy, uneasy feeling spread through him. Do you still love him, Omi? Atsumu lowered his head again and turned off the water. He got out of the shower, dried himself and put on a grey hoodie and black sweatpants. Wrapping the towel around his neck, he left the bathroom. He heard voices coming from the living room, so he made his way over there. When he entered, Atsumu was drying his hair. His gaze immediately locked with Sakusa's, both blushing at the sight of each other. Komori was having a conversation with Aiko, but he interrupted himself when he saw Atsumu. His eyes widened. His lips formed into an O. Shock spread across his face. He blinked a few times and his gaze wandered back and forth between Atsumu and Sakusa. Holy shit, did you guys get into a fight? Atsumu and Sakusa flinched, both looking at Komori somewhat dumbfounded. Practice. We were just practicing. Atsumu came up with the same excuse he used on Aiko. From the looks of the two of them though, it really hadn't been just practicing. Fuck, Kyo. Even I don't get that much from you. You were really rough on Atsumu. Sakusa looked at Atsumu with a pained look. He was sorry. He didn't want to land such strong hits and he certainly didn't want to hurt Atsumu. Komori gently touched Sakusa's lip, causing Sakusa to groan in pain and completely ripping him out of his thoughts. He gave Komori a pissed off look, who immediately flinched back with his hand and just smirked at Sakusa. Are you stupid? Komori let small chuckles escape his mouth. Atsumu really got you, didn't he? Sakusa looked at Komori in sheer dismay. How did you manage to do that, Atsumu? I can never get that close to Kyo. Guess I was a little lucky. Atsumu put his hands in his pockets and avoided eye contact with Sakusa and Komori. The whole thing was really uncomfortable for him. He sat down next to Aiko, who placed her hand on Atsumu's thigh and gave him a weak smile. The corners of Atsumu's mouth unconsciously lifted a little as well. What were you discussing just now? We were talking about your ex-girlfriend. Yachi. That's right, there was that. Atsumu didn't want to and couldn't quite believe that Yachi would have anything to do with this. Atsumu muffled into his hoodie and spoke in a soft voice. Omi said that she was the one who gave me the knockout drops. But I don't think it was her. What if it was her? Atsumu shook his head, trying almost desperately to make his friends understand that Yachi was incapable of such a thing. Sakusa frowned and looked at Atsumu skeptically. No, I really don't think so. Yachi is harmless. She couldn't hurt a fly. I mean, it's Yachi. Until now, she blames herself for pecking at someone during an English test years ago. Atsumu. I recognized her from a photo. She's the same woman I observed about a month ago, and she was definitely talking about Seki. So there is a connection. Atsumu gave Komori a shocked look. He furrowed his brows and tried to look for any explanation as to why Yachi wouldn't have anything to do with this. It made sense. Blonde hair, young woman about their age, about the same height as Aiko. The description fit. Why would she knock me out? She didn't even know I worked for Aiko. Maybe it was enough that you were there with Kyo. They could definitely put one and one together. Atsumu turned his gaze to the floor and swallowed. Did Yachi really have something to do with this? Atsumu just couldn't imagine that at all. Sakusa frowned and looked Atsumu in the eyes as he began to speak. Sometimes we know the least about the very people we trust so much. Komori, Aiko, and Atsumu flinched, everyone's eyes widening, their gazes stiffening. No one dared to say a word, they would only make things worse. Atsumu, however, then frowned and got a little mad. Yachi is not like Yuki. He wanted to say it. Yachi is not like Yuki. But glancing into Sakusa's eyes, Atsumu couldn't bring it past his lips, his face now expressing more pity for Sakusa than Atsumu being mad about anything anymore. Sakusa wasn't mad or angry, nor sad, but simply disappointed. His eyes stared at Atsumu, but they were empty. Atsumu's heart ached. He spoke softly and lowered his gaze to the ground again. Atsumu couldn't bring himself to continue looking at Sakusa like that. Yachi is not like you all think. Still, the fact remains that she's our lead to Seki. Atsumu crossed his arms, closed his eyes for a moment and pressed his fingers against the bridge of his nose. He frowned. Let me talk to her, please. I don't want anything to happen to her. That's the thing. No one has seen her since the art exhibition. Neither her address nor her phone number can be found, as if she dropped off the face of the earth. We were hoping she told you something about her whereabouts. Atsumu's eyes widened. Was Yachi in danger? He shook his head slowly. No. The only thing she said was that she would stay here for 3 days, but they are over now. Shit. But I could ask Samu. Osamu? Your brother? Yes. I'm sure she paid him and Suna a visit. It's worth a try. Atsumu glanced at the clock. 5 p.m. He should still be at the cafe. I will go to him. Wait, Achu, you shouldn't go alone. Atsumu was almost out of the living room when he suddenly stopped and turned around again. He saw Sakusa coming in his direction, his gaze now filled with a little more life again. Atsumu gave him a weak smile. Atsumu. Bring me a cake. Osamu's pastries are the best. It's been ages since we last visited him at the cafe. Atsumu often went to his brother's cafe with Aiko and Komori in the beginning, so they all knew each other already. Atsumu smirked. He gave Aiko a thumbs up and presented her the widest grin. Will do, boss. As Atsumu and Sakusa entered the cafe, a small bell jingled the moment the door opened. I'm sorry, but we're closing, Atsumu. Atsumu grinned all over his face as Suna spotted him and came out from behind the counter to hug him. Sakusa eyed the cafe. It was small, but still large enough for many guests to enter. Everything was so comfortably furnished, one felt immediately at ease here. Sakusa smiled faintly when he saw how happy Atsumu looked as he hugged Suna. Suddenly, Osamu came out of the kitchen, a bowl in one arm and the whisk in the other hand, just about to prepare a batter. Oh, did you call for my brother? Sakusa spotted the gray-haired Atsumu copy a few feet in front of him and was fascinated by how alike the two actually looked. Osamu's eyes widened. He dropped the bowl and his chin flapped open. Suna and Atsumu winced as the stuff clattered to the floor. Oh, Samu, better watch out. Osamu rushed to Atsumu and examined his face closely. Holy shit, Atsumu, what happened to you? Oh, right. Atsumu had already forgotten that he looked a bit beat up since his fight with Sakusa. Atsumu smiled sheepishly and rubbed the back of his head. Ahahaha, yeah, that. I tripped and fell. Osamu looked at his brother with concern and then turned his gaze to Sakusa, who didn't look quite as bad as Atsumu but also carried some traces of the argument. Osamu's eyes pierced Sakusa, who also eyed Atsumu's brother from top to bottom. The tension between them was incredible. Atsumu, you fool. You've been hurting yourself a lot lately. Come on, I'll make you some coffee. Yay. Thanks, Suna-rin. While Atsumu followed Suna to the counter, Sakusa and Osamu stared at each other for a while longer. Sakusa could literally feel the scathing look on Osamu's face. Tripped and fell. Huh? Osamu spoke in an almost angry tone while not taking his eyes off Sakusa. Samu. Clean this place up. Oh, I haven't even introduced you guys yet. By the way, this is Sakusa Kiyoomi. Do you remember? He accidentally hit me on the head that time. Atsumu grinned like an idiot while telling the others about it. He immediately infected Suna with his good mood, but Sakusa and Osamu were not blinded by it. Their gazes were still focused on each other. I guess you're not bringing my brother much luck if he keeps getting hurt since he's been with you guys. Sakusa's eyes widened now. He was incredibly tense. Suddenly, Atsumu swung his arms over Osamu's shoulders from behind and pulled him a little closer, turning his brother's gaze fully on him and giving him his widest smile. Samu, Aiko wants a cake. Do you have any left? Atsumu sighed and shook his head, smiling a little at the sight of how happy his brother was looking at him. Sit down. I have another chocolate cake prepared. Atsumu poked Atsumu in the cheek. You are the best. I know. Atsumu pushed his brother towards the counter and looked at Sakusa's face out of the corner of his eye one last time. His expression was just as threatening as before. Sakusa wasn't particularly impressed and followed the brothers to the counter, where he and Atsumu each got a drink from Suna. It's been a while since you were here last. Yes, that's right. I promise to come more often. Sorry. Atsumu cleaned up the mess he had made a few minutes ago. You better keep your promise, bro. I will. Atsumu grinned at his twin, who gave him a broad smile back. Hey, has Yachi stopped by here lately? MHMMM. Yes. She told us that she met you. Yes, that's right. When was she here? And when was that, Samu? It must have been just a few days ago. But she had to leave right away. She was going up north to the Japanese track and field championship. Huh? Did she get a job there? Suna giggled and rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. I guess she didn't tell you that. She's cheering for Kiryu. Kiryu. Suna nodded sheepishly while Atsumu stared at him in shock. Are they? Yup. Since when? Almost half a year. Huh. Atsumu crossed his arms and slumped back into the back of his bar stool. Sakusa looked at Atsumu a little confused while Suna raised an eyebrow at Atsumu. Jealous? Atsumu laughed and shook his head. More like happy that it finally worked out. She'd had a crush on him for a while. I can't believe you guys used to be together. Shouldn't you rather hate your ex? Atsumu giggled. Yachi and I have always been more like good friends than a couple. I'm really happy for her. You really are a person, Atsumu. Atsumu just grinned and took a sip of his coffee. Sakusa looked at the blonde boy next to him, but didn't quite know how to feel about all this. Hey Atsumu, can I talk to you for a minute? Sure. Atsumu nodded towards the kitchen to make sure the twins were alone. Atsumu followed his brother and leaned against the counter, snacking on strawberries. Atsumu closed the door and leaned against the counter opposite Atsumu, his arms crossed in front of his chest and frowning. What? Atsumu spoke with his mouth full of strawberries. He noticed that something was bothering Atsumu. What's this job you're working on for Aiko? You're always injured. Atsumu, I'm worried. Atsumu almost choked, his eyes wide open. What happened to your hand? Your face? I told you, Samu, I tripped and fell. I was just quite clumsy. Stop lying to me, Atsumu. Tripped and fell. You were almost a fucking professional athlete. Hurdling, remember? Atsumu fell silent. He looked into Atsumu serious face. His brother could always tell when Atsumu was lying, but this time it was especially easy. The lie was bullshit. And what about this Sakusa boy? Huh? Atsumu's sparkling eyes met Atsumu's. I have a strange feeling about him, Atsumu. Like he's bad company for you. No, he's not. I mean, he can be pretty moody and all, but deep down inside he's actually a really nice person. Atsumu's gaze wandered to the floor. His heart pounded at the thought of Sakusa, his cheeks flushed. Atsumu's eyes widened at the sight of his brother, his chin dropped. Holy shit, you like him. Atsumu's gaze snapped to Atsumu's face and met a shocked expression. Atsumu felt caught. What? No. Oh my gosh, brother, you fell so hard for him. Atsumu's face turned even redder, his expression now more annoyed. Atsumu suddenly hugged his brother, which made Atsumu's tense body loosen up a bit. You can't tell me. I got it. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself, Atsumu. Don't get involved in any dangerous things, okay? Atsumu took a deep breath and hugged Atsumu even tighter. He buried his head into his brother's shoulder. Yes. Promise? Promise. They let go of one another and smiled at each other, then walked back to Suna and Sakusa. Atsumu's heart beat even faster seeing Sakusa, who was just focused on the conversation with Suna and smiling at what Suna had just told him. Oh, brothers are back. Stop messing around, you two. Yeah, you of all people should say that, Samu. Atsumu smiled mischievously at Suna and his brother and walked over to Sakusa. With his hands in his pockets, he stood next to him. Omi, let's go home. Those two start getting annoying as soon as they get in their love-a-dove mood. Suna and Osamu smirked at Atsumu. Jealous? Of course. Suna and Atsumu smiled at each other with big grins on their faces. Then Atsumu pulled Sakusa along with him. Achu. The cake for Aiko. Oh damn. Samu shook his head, judging Atsumu for his obliviousness. Oopsie. Here we go. Greetings to Aiko and Komori. Yes. Thanks Samu. Then they left the cafe. Sakusa walked beside Atsumu, his hands in his pockets and his eyes lowered to the street in front of him. Atsumu could tell something was bothering him. What's on your mind, Omi? Sakusa snapped his head towards Atsumu, only to see the honey-colored eyes sparkle at him. Sakusa melted at the sight. Atsumu was giving him a warm smile. Achu. Atsumu's expression changed to confusion. He tilted his head and looked at Sakusa with concern. Why are you helping us anyway? You have friends, family who love you and care about you. Why are you putting yourself in danger? Atsumu put his hand back in his pockets. In his other hand he was holding the cake for Aiko. His gaze was now tilted to the ground. He smiled weakly. A few strands of his hair fell into his face. He blushed slightly and spoke in a soft voice. I want to protect you, Omi. You, Aiko and Komori. Atsumu met Sakusa's eyes, a smile spreading across his face. You are my family too. Sakusa's heart sank. He was captivated by Atsumu's smile. He blushed hard, the butterflies in his stomach going crazy. Sakusa couldn't take his eyes off Atsumu. He was lost in the beauty of the blonde boy smiling at him. Achu. You don't make it easy for me not to love you.